Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and good morning. It is my pleasure to introduce someone who is a family friend, but also a person who has helped many people that I know with financial planning. Syed Nishat is our guest speaker. He's a partner at Wall Street Alliance Group. He is a regular contributor for Kevin MD and his articles and interviews about asset protection and common financial mistakes by physicians. This was published in Medscape, Medical Economics, and MedPage. Syed is quoted and interviewed in prominent media outlets like Forbes, US News, Bloomberg, and Yahoo Finance. Today, we will interview him about financial planning for residents and young physicians. So Syed, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Navina, for having us.
All right, so we'll get right to the interview, and then for the attendees, what we're going to do is at the end of the interview with Syed, we will open it up to Q&A, and we'll open your mic so that you can ask the question directly. So Syed, let's start with the important question. What, in your opinion, are the biggest mistakes you've seen residents or recent graduates making in financial planning?
Yeah, thank you, Namira, again for having me. And first, I would like to start by congratulating all the medical students who matched the residency program and all the hard work that paid off, and also all the healthcare worker for their hard work and support during this pandemic. When we talk about financial planning for residents, obviously it is a little bit different compared to other people's financial plan, other profession financial plan. But for the last 2 years, every year is different. For the last 2 years, we're seeing one trend. Like recently, we received a young graduate, a Nevada gastroenterologist, and the client actually sent me a statement. We took a look. The mistakes we see, everything the client actually put into one stock. Like they're doing a lot of trading for the last 2 years. I think partly the reason is because of the media fueled ideas the residents are coming up with, and everyone is doing it, the peer pressure. So buying and selling a stock, trading, we see a lot happening nowadays, number one. And when I asked them that why this pattern, why you're buying one stock, why you're buying speculative stocks like Bitcoin, I can partly the reason is because they're saying they're starting with a lot of debts as their students. And the market is going high. It's easy to buy, easy to sell. If there's any way they can take a shortcut and make money quicker. And everyone is giving ideas, so they are getting influenced by it and doing it. But this is one of the biggest mistakes you can make, because the market timing doesn't work in our experience. Like 1 or 2 times you can actually be lucky. But overall, I think residents should focus on financial plan. What I mean by financial plan, like talk about budgeting, talk about loan payments. These are the foundation to give your family stability. Once you have done it, once you accumulate enough net worth, then you can talk about investment. So the biggest mistakes we see residents are making is timing the market, day trading. That's why we decided to go to Kevin MD, Medscape, and talk about the importance of financial planning for residents and physicians.
Okay, thank you. I know that as a resident, I did not plan anything, did not have any guidance. So what steps do they have to take for financial planning?
Yeah, so a lot of times residents and graduates think that financial planning itself, they don't need it because they think that as of right now, they have little money. Maybe you can just do investment, and financial planning may come later. But in our opinion, you can just do some very basic, simple steps. These are 7 steps the residents can take to get started. And it's not that complicated. So first step we recommend to all the residents and recent graduates, in understand your debt if you have any. Debt means like, is it a FAFSA loan or is it a private loan, and how much the payment is going to be. And you must understand that the loan needs to be paid off. So understand the loan is the first step. Number 2 is create a sound budget is very important. And that's going to be the foundation overall once you understand the debt. What I mean by budget, and we will talk more about the budget example in the next slides, that how much money you should be saving for retirement, how much money you'll be paying for rent, how much for food, how much to pay off the debts, and how much for entertainment and traveling. Once you create the foundation and then you understand your debt, then if you have additional money, we recommend try to get the basic disability. The reason is disability we're recommending to do it now is because while you're young, the cost is very cheap. Don't have to go for something crazy amount of disability, just a basic disability will do it. And then also try to get some life insurance as well. Again, the younger you are, the cheaper is the cost for the life insurance. Just get the basic term life insurance just in case anything happens to you, your family is protected, your debts are paid off. And then you should max out the retirement account, at least if you're working for the hospital or if you have your own practice or if you work for government employees. The reason is because whenever you contribute, the employer match as well. Very often we see that the residents don't contribute anything in retirement. Possibly they don't know about it, but it's free money. Usually we see 3% if you contribute, there's a 6% match. 3 to 6% ratio we see it, plus there are other investment options there through employer, we will talk on the next slide, but at least contribute the amount of money you're getting free match for the employer. And last two part I will talk about once you've done all of it. If you have time, get a basic will done. Nothing crazy about estate planning, just to get a will done, because in US, if anything happens to you, something as simple as the custody of the children will be decided by the US government. So get a basic will done. And lastly, when you do the investment at this point, because you are residents, you just recent graduate, you have other obligations, do passive investments. What I meant by Vanguard, ETF, mutual fund, and just track the market, and that's it. Don't focus on actively buying, selling individual stock. If you just follow these 7 basic steps and lay out foundation and give it 2 years, then go back and revisit and see what's the situation. And then at that time, you'll be ahead of the game because you have laid out the foundation.
Okay. Well, that's very helpful. At the end of your talk, we'll do a poll to see how many people actually have a financial plan. All right. So so once we've done the financial planning, you talked a little bit about retirement. So that's a big thing I know in the US to save towards retirement. So what type of retirement accounts are available for young physicians?
Yeah, for young physician, we have seen some young physician do locum, or they actually work for hospital, get 1099 paid. So and some residents actually work for directly. They are into work for the employer or they're academic. These are the 2 types of residents we have seen it. So if you are locum based or if you want to have your own practice, you can open something called a cash balance plan for maximum deduction I'm talking about. So in a cash balance plan, just to summarize that you can contribute if you're over the age of 60, almost $260,000, and this money is completely tax deductible. But residents usually, obviously, they're in their 30s and 40s, you can contribute around close to $100,000 from your income. Again, this money is all tax deductible. I'll be surprised that if you want to contribute so much, usually residents make between $60,000 to $90,000 per year. So if you are self-employed, you might want to consider doing a SEP IRA. SEP IRA means self-employment plan, where you can contribute 25% of your W-2 wage or 20% of your adjusted gross income, whatever income you collect as a resident, as a 1099, all money is pre-tax. Straightforward IRA account, husband, wife together below the age of 50 can contribute almost $6,000 each. And again, this money is pre-tax. And lastly, and a lot of hospitals or your own practice, they allow you to open an HSA account. It's a health savings account if you have high deductible insurance. For the family, you can contribute almost $7,000. Again, these are pre-tax money. And again, the money actually goes tax deferred. And after the age of 66, you can use it for non-health reason as well. So these are the options available that if you are self-employed. Now, if you're employed through the hospital, 90% of the hospitals we know they offer 401k. In a 401k plan, you can take a look, actually, the table at the bottom. In a 401k plan, from your salary, you can contribute $19,500, the maximum amount. But the match is not going to be $19,500. Usually the match is about 6% of your salary. So if you contribute $50,000, if your income from the hospital, the maximum contribution is going to be 6% of $50,000, which is $3,000. That's it. but the amount you can go 19,500, regardless basically of your salary. So definitely we recommend as a residents, depending on your situation, at least contribute what the employer are matching ASAP. There are two other plans called 457 and 409A. 457, you contribute, there's no match usually. It's just a deferral. It's about 19,500. 409A, this is not every hospital offer, depending on the hospital you work for. The contribution amount is about 90% of your salary, all you can defer it. The difference between 409A, 457, and 401A K plan is if the hospital filed for bankruptcy, in a 457 and in a 409A, the principal are not protected from creditor. So just have to understand it, and that's it. And lastly, residents and young graduates should consider a Roth IRA account because in a Roth IRA, the money grows tax-free. The withdrawal is also tax-free after the age of 60. And right now you're in a low income bracket. So definitely consider Roth IRA. And the beauty, Namira, I think Roth IRA is very important that after 5 years of contributing, you can take money out for qualified reason. You don't have to wait until 60. For example, after 5 years, most residents don't buy a house now, they will be buying later. After 5 years, you can take out up to $10,000 from a Roth IRA, and you don't have to worry about paying any taxes and penalties. So it's very powerful. Roth IRA, you should definitely max out. So these are the options available for you. Try to utilize as much as you can. Talk to the HR people at the hospital. They should be definitely able to help you out.
Okay. Thank you. So just to, the one thing I remember from what you just said was the, at least for residents, because, our salaries are not that high, try to put in as much as the program would match. So
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. And then, so that brings us to how much should I contribute as the next question in the retirement account.
Yeah, so you just answered this question, that at least usually, in a typical financial plan, we recommend contribute 20% of your income, but that's not always the case, depending on how much mortgage you have, how much student debts you have. So it's not always the case. So, but we at least recommend while you're working, 6% usually we see the match, but you have to contribute about 3%. So 3% is a magic number, 3 to 4% of your salary, you should contribute into a 401k or 403b plan.
Okay. And then is it better to contribute to a 401k or a Roth IRA or both?
Yeah, so usually if you do a Roth IRA, is an individual name. Most of the time, it's nothing to do with the hospital. So you're not going to get any match if you do a Roth, but you can do both though. So that's why in the first slide, we talked about the budgeting comes into play, because all the ideas are there, the budgeting will do the implementation. So that's why you have to sit down and see how much additional cash you have it. So if you do have it, first step is get the match from the hospital. You should definitely do it. Second step, if you have enough man, do the Roth IRA.
Okay. So a little change in the topic. You mentioned a little bit about insurances, the life insurance. And from what I understand, there are two different types. Can you talk a little bit about that and let us know which one is better?
For residents, obviously, another mistake, actually, we see a lot of times, they go to insurance agent and they get sold whole life insurance a lot of time. And, the idea is that, you put the money, you can take the money out tax-free. I get it, but a lot of times it doesn't make sense. Whole life doesn't give you a lot of returns. So we always recommend to get started, go for term life. Term life insurance basically is like paying a premium for health. Obviously, the money is not getting invested. You buy it for 20 years term, you buy for 30 years term, but it's very cheap. It's only give you a death benefit. But most term life insurance have a rider that you can convert at any time to a whole life, and your health is locked. So go for term life. In the future, if you have enough money, you can always convert it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And is that something that all of them will offer, that you can do that, or we have to ask up front?
Yeah, most term life insurance, they are big names. They have this rider included, like MetLife, New York Life have it. So as long as it's an individual policy, before you purchase, if you just ask them, they will just confirm with you.
Okay. So on the same line, especially as residents or fellows, they ask us about disability insurance. And most of the time we're thinking, well, we're not going to be disabled, so let's not waste the money. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think disability insurance, as long as you have this enough income coming, and then you can spare this money, definitely you can consider disability income. But again, these are extra cash you are laying out. So the question becomes, can you afford it? But usually we recommend, if it's all possible, get the basic disability. If you're part of a group like AMA, they have very cheap disability insurance. But try to look out when you go for disability, make sure that you have this rider included in it. For example, is guaranteed renewability. That means that any given time you can just renew this disability, no question will be asked. That's very important. True occupation means a lot of residents, let's say we had a resident who's actually doing a fellowship actually now, and he will be a hematology oncologist. And then make sure when you get the disability, it covers if you're an oncologist. So if you cannot practice oncologist, become an internal medicine, it should cover it. And lastly, make sure it has a residual income rider in it. If you become partial disabled, it should pay for that as well. And cost of living adjustment is also important. Right now, you are residents, you're in your 40s or probably 30s. And then by the time you may become disabled, it's going to be maybe 60. The rider actually keep paying you more as you become older. So these doesn't cost that much. So, but when you get the disabled, either through employer or through yourself, make sure you have the riders in it, but get at least your monthly income, monthly expenses, you have it, that amount as a disability insurance.
Okay. All right. And and then moving on, you've done your residency, you've done your fellowship, and you've graduated and now doing locum or starting your own practice. And we hear a lot about LLC. Can you elaborate a little bit on what we should be doing if we have our own practice?
Yeah, so a lot of time people ask, do I have to have an LLC if I want to have your own practice, or can I just have everything under my name? You create LLC or SCorp just to give asset protection, just in case if you get a loss. So that's the main reason. Taxes pretty much all comes down to the same. Now, there's only one difference in LLC and SCorp is the Medicare tax. And I just want to just show you an example that a young physician making $800,000 in a 1099 income. So if the resident basically have everything in LLC, what happened in all the distribution the residents take, the 3.5% Medicare is full amount the residents have to pay on $800,000. Full amount you have to pay.
Okay.
The same residents basically create an S-corp. S corporation means it's a small corporation. S-corp allow you to take a wage and a distribution, a combination. That's the bottom line. So that resident can take $250,000 as a W-2 wage and can take the rest of the money out as a distribution or a shareholder distribution. But the benefit is going to be the 3.5% of the difference of 250 or 800, which is going to be around $19,000. I'm just hovering my mouse here. This is the amount of money you save in taxes, in Medicare taxes. So yeah, it just comes down to Medicare taxes, how much you save. But if your income is only 50,000, I'm talking about you're opening up your own practice, you can just be sole proprietorship because these cost money to open up. So unless your income is more than $500,000, we recommend just stick with either LLC and S-corp. Because in S corporation the combination needs to be there, the wage and the distribution. So again, everyone's situation is different. Speak to your financial advisor or CPA, which one makes most sense for you.
Okay, I think for this one I'm going to need to call you, the lifeline.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Next, if we have a lot of debt, coming in, starting residency, should we still be contributing to retirement, buy a house, pay off our debt? I mean, how should we tackle that?
You can actually, a lot of times we see residents, they say either or. I think it's a mistake that, okay, I don't want to buy a house, I don't pay the debt, or I just want to, buy a house, never pay off the debt because interest is so low. I think it's a mistake. I think the best way to tackle it is you can do all if you want to, as long as you come up with a budget. One thing we just have to understand that after you graduate, as a recent graduate, live like a graduate, at least for 2-3 years.
Okay.
If you can just do it and have a sound budget, you can actually buy a house as well. Reason is because there's something called student loan, not a student loan, called physician only loan. For example, BB&T, M&T Bank, Wells Fargo, they have this, the student loan doesn't count towards the debt to income ratio. You can go for it. And the amount of, as long as you didn't file for bankruptcy, the amount is going to be pretty much the same, like if you don't have the student loan. And then meanwhile, you can just come up with a monthly plan for the student loans as well. So it is quite possible. It all depends on the budget you have.
Okay, all right. So that includes how we tackle the debt management, or do you have some other pointers for us?
I'll just point out a lot of residents and young physicians don't know about what kind of debts available out there, and I just want to put it out there. It may not be applicable, but sometimes with these do see that they're applicable for you, because the debt management could be a webinar of its own. So we cannot just go through the full detail, but just to point out, there are basically two types of loan. One is a federal loan, one is a private loan when you go for it. And including green card holder, actually, a lot of residents will see they are qualified for it. So the federal loan depends on how much income your parents have. So if your parents actually came here, don't have too much of income, you may qualify for federal loan. You complete a FAFSA application, and depending on the wage of your parents, you may qualify for it. Now, one thing you just have to see, if you get a federal loan, speak to your financial advisor of the loan payment type. Usually there's no loan payment while you're in school. The loan payment basically starts after 6 months of your graduation once you get a job in pretty much any loan. Now, loan payment types, these are something you should focus on a little bit. One payment could be income-based repayment, like whatever your income is, certain percentage you pay, every month. This could be number one. Number two, pay as you earn. This becomes popular because it's been launched recently after income-based payment. The benefit is that the percentage of pay every year is about 10% versus the first one, which is about 15% of your income you have to pay. And the last one, basically, we see very popular is revised pay as you earn. It's called repay. Again, these are only available for federal loans. Repay basically is a little powerful, that the 50% of the interest you accrued is paid by the government. So again, the type of loan you have it is very important. So these are the three popular loans we see it. Green card holder do qualify depending on your parents' income. So please reach out to the FAFSA people and see if you qualify for it. And private loan is obviously very easy, depending like Discover card or MasterCard. They actually have this student loan programs. Is private. The interest rate is a little bit higher. There's nothing called income-based repayment there. You do have to pay, interest plus principal. The payment's a little bit higher. And public service loan forgiveness, if you work for nonprofit, make sure you speak to your employer that if you have made about 120 payments monthly, a certain percentage is forgiven as well. So depending on where you're working, it's for nonprofit if you work. But again, this is available for you if you have a lot of student debts. So make sure you speak with them if any one of them are qualified for you. Now, the best way, I will just summarize, to do a debt management after you graduate is try to consolidate everything under one credit card or under one debt if it's possible. Consolidation, usually we see that residents have about 5 to 6 different programs. They take debts. After graduation, depending on the interest rate, refinance it and try to consolidate under one company. You may have to pay a little bit of a transaction fee, but it is very powerful because the monthly payment may go down. So an interest rate right now, Namita, is very low. It's a good time to refinance it. So debt management is very important. You don't have to pay a significant amount to financial advisor. If you call FAFSA, if you call different organization, they should be able to actually help you pretty much complimentary.
So this may be a silly question, but are international medical graduates who are not citizens or green card holders able to take these loans?
Green card holder, yes, who are residents. Permanent residents, they definitely can. International students, obviously the federal loan may not work. But still speak with them that something similar to FAFSA is available for them or not.
Okay. All right. So so you talked about the loan types, and getting back to the budget, which we're going to end with a poll question. Can you give us a little sample of a breakdown of a budget? Just for our.
Yeah, so again, this is obviously for residents and young physicians because the emphasis has been given to actually pay down the debts,
Yes.
which are very common. Usually we recommend that, as I mentioned, that right after the graduation, make sure if you make $500,000, don't incur additional expenses. I understand that it is quite easy that, okay, I was making 50, now making $500,000. Let's start at standard of living go up, and peer pressure is always there. Okay, my friend is driving a Maserati, I would like to go ahead as well. I get it, but just give yourself 2 to 3 years. I can assure you that the same peer pressure will be there at that time, and you can enjoy your life much better. But in a breakdown, if you see it, we would like to see not more than 20% you're spending in housing and rent. Usually we see right after graduation, they buy such expensive house that almost 30 to 40% goes away paying mortgage. There are basically two types of loan. One is a federal loan, one is a private loan when you go for. Right. So make sure that the amount of money you're spending in the rent is not more than 20% of your income. Saving, make sure you, if it's all possible, save 20% of your income for saving. It could be retirement, that's absolutely fine. Food, not more than, try to cook at home. I understand it sounds silly, but 10 to 15% basically spend in food. Transportation 10%, health you still have to pay some deductibilities about 10%, utility miscellaneous about 10, and charity and debt payment, I put it together, but ideally 15% of your income. If you have debts, try to pay this off as soon as possible. So that's give you about 100% of your overall budget that may look like. And you can use different apps out there. Residents are very tech savvy. For example, Packet Guard or Mint, they give you a very good way to track all the expenses. But if you follow this rule for 3 years, then once you accumulate net worth over close to $500,000, then we can sit down and talk to a financial advisor that, okay, what's the next step and how I can improve my overall living standard.
Okay. So, and then included in this budget, is estate planning important for residents as well?
Yeah, so estate planning, we are recommending just get the basic estate planning done. And there's a lot of websites you can go to. They can provide in very cheap, like legalzoom.com as well. Again, talk to your attorney, which one makes sense, but just get a basic will if anything happens, who will take care of the children, because it's quite common for residents at the age of 35 or 38 have children as well, doing fellowship, have children as well. So that's very important. If anything happens to you, your wife should be able to call and make decision for you. So just have a living will as well that includes health proxy. These are very cheap to do it. It's a little time consuming, but once you do it, it's good for a long time. And trust, at this stage, it may not be necessary because your net worth may not be substantial. But if somehow you're making a lot of money, then think about revocable trust as well that avoids probate. But basic will and basic health proxy, we recommend to get it done.
Okay. What if we're in a situation where we have no debt, we have a lot of money, or we're making good salary? The US sure has a lot of tax on high income. How can we lower our taxes?
Yeah, if you're one of this lucky one making a lot of money suddenly, just in case, it does happen with AQ graduates, they're very smart. If this is the situation, again, I just want to, we spoke about this cash balance plan as a self-employment, you can contribute almost $100,000 pre-tax. Retirement plan, max out as much as you can. Investment wise, AQ graduates and not just AQ, a lot of graduates are very investment savvy. If you're investing into real estate, invest into Opportunity Zone. In Dallas, you will find it. If you hold on to it for 10 years, no taxes. Cost segregation, a lot of graduates have their own practice and they actually own the building. If you own the building, consider cost segregation. In cost segregation, basically you get a huge depreciation. So whatever income you're collecting from the building, you can get to write off. And then if you are really charity minded, we can create a charitable plan for you. Again, this is out of today's topic. I cannot cover all of it in detail, but just to point it out there, we can talk one-on-one if it's needed. That in charitable planning, we can create a charitable plan in such a way you can contribute and you can withdraw income as well. But again, these are advanced strategies, ideas are available out there. But if you're in this situation, definitely you should speak to a financial advisor what is applicable for you.
Okay. And then amongst the retirement fund, you talked a little bit about earlier that we tend to put it in one stock. Any recommendation on mutual funds versus stocks for retirement accounts?
Yeah, so we recommend, the residents right now is, in order to invest into stocks, we see the magic number is $500,000. If you have $500,000, you can actually buy multiple different stocks and diversify properly, and you need time to do it. There's no way you can just go to Robinhood app and just every day do day trading. This is not investment work. Investment should be buy and hold for long term. And you don't have time for it. You most likely a resident, you'll do a fellowship, you do rotation, you don't have time for any of this. So we recommend go for passive investment, go for ETF, exchange traded fund. In ETF, they track the market for you. The cost is very low. You don't need a financial advisor at this stage. We recommend just do it yourself, buy a passive investment and leave it there for long term.
Okay, that's great. So any concluding remarks before we open up for questions?
Yeah, I will just summarize again what we spoke before. It's a 7-step process. You don't have to go crazy about the whole financial plan. Out of this 7, if you can just do first 5, I think you'll be a good start. Tackle down your debt. Just understand what the debt's available out there. Create a budget. Again, I cannot emphasize enough. Budget is going to be the foundation, how things are going to go. Get this disability insurance either through work or through yourself, and get a basic life insurance. And retirement account contribute as much as at least the employer match. If you can just take 5 off of 7 and give it 3 years time, and I think you'll be a very good shape possible. Wonderful.
Thank you, Syed, for sharing your wisdom with us and taking time out. We're going to open up to questions. If the attendees can raise their hand, then I can unmute them to speak. All right, we have Dr. Faiz Inam. Go ahead, Dr. Inam.
Hi, thanks for the talk. Any advice on rebalancing, annual rebalancing every year, as like certain ETFs or stocks do well, and then trying to maintain your risk profile, etc. I'm always hesitant on selling, but I know the advice is generally that you should rebalance, that you maintain your risk profile.
Yeah, so obviously the rebalance means that let's say you started with some stocks that has gone up significantly at the beginning of the year. In the middle of the year, you should sell some of it, book some profit, and buy the sector which are actually down. That is basically what rebalance means. So that's why once you do a passive investment, we mentioned, again, this financial plan has been designed for residents, not necessarily for advanced people who have a lot of money. We recommend that rebalance the portfolio in such a way that it is always like 90%. Because you are young right now, most residents, 90% should be in equity, 10% should be into short-term bonds. If you're through employer 401k, 403b, they have the automatic rebalance option. You just have to select it. So automatically they do it for you. There's no headache. If you're doing yourself, like you're self-employed, unfortunately, you do have to spend some time on this. But for a little fee, there's a lot of apps out there like Robinhood different companies out there. You can pay them like 0.30% fee, 0.5% fee. They just automatically rebalance it for you. But yes, rebalance is extremely important, is because especially if you're going for high equity, 4 times a year, we're recommending doing the rebalance. But most of the times we see is automatic through employer.
Okay, thank you, Syed. Any other questions? So I have a question. Many of us come here from Pakistan and are not used to, thinking about retirement. Things are a little bit different in the US. What is different in the US that such a large amount, or at least a big retirement fund, is needed?
Yeah, so in Pakistan, most of the times when we speak to client, there's a distrust in the stock market we see over here. is quite common is because a lot of times still we see the graduates who come from Pakistan, they believe that this is gambling. Honestly speaking, we do see it all the time. We don't want to get into it. And because in Pakistan, the stock market goes up and down a lot. There's not much of a government law going on there. But in America, like it or not, this is the foundation to give your family stability in financial plan. In Pakistan, obviously, real estate is a big investment. A lot of times we see either invest into real estate or either invest in your children. That's very common, and they will take care of you. I understand all of this, and that America things are different. You're pretty much your own. So if you have a proper financial plan, not only you can take care of your children, also you can take care of your retirement as well. But start early, as soon as possible for the residents. So that's why I say start as soon as possible. So you don't want to do the financial plan when you're 60, it's going to be too late. But if you start at the age of 30, 35, as soon as possible, that would lay out the foundation for you for a comfortable retirement.
Thank you. And I want to point out too, since we're all physicians, that the health costs in this country are extremely high. And a lot of times things happen after we retire. So it's good to have that retirement fund handy. Dr. Zain Khan has a really good question. Can you tell us a little bit about credit scores? Is it possible to increase your score, or how you increase your score, and how you should use your credit? There's multiple questions. So how about we start with the credit scores?
Yeah, most of the time the credit score goes down because you have missed a payment. A lot of times, unfortunately, that's 60% of the time the credit score goes down. So the best way to handle it is you have to give it some time. It takes about 1 to 2 years after you have missed a payment to have a reflection. There's something called credit healers. There's a companies out there. You can just hire them. It's not significantly expensive. They will just give you ideas, what needs to be done so you can improve your credit score. But typically it's this payment you have missed. That's number one. Number two is the revolving balance is also very important. A lot of times we see in credit card, you have this charge card. It's called American Express. You have a charge card that basically you keep using it. But what happens if you just have a charge card, but no limit in it, like, you cannot carry forward, be a little bit careful in it. You try to use like a traditional credit card, not just a charge card, because the charge card, basically what happens, the overall rotation balance becomes huge. And try to pay every month a certain date. If you go to myfico.com, every month, certain date, they pull your score. A lot of times residents ask, hey, I'm paying all my payment monthly. Why my score down? Because what's happening, the day they're pulling your score, the balance is still there. So make sure that just understand what day they pull your record, and don't pay at the very last day. Try to pay a few days before of the payment. So in this way, you will see the revolving balance actually goes down, number two. And number three, just in case, if you have a default of a credit card, you do have to speak to a debt management company. Unfortunately, most of the debt management company have a poor reputation to be very aggressive. So we recommend first steps, speak to your CPA or financial advisor, and try to open up a bank and try to consolidate the credit card under one and come up with a monthly payment option. And if you give it 2 years, I think the credit card will improve vastly.
Okay. Any other questions? I don't see any other Q&As. I'm gonna open up people to allow them to talk if they have any questions. This is your time, guys, to ask questions if you have any. This is, otherwise you would have to hire Syed to get all this wonderful advice. So one question from the Facebook page is, what kind of investment can a resident make on J1H1?
J1H1 pretty much can open the same account. Charge card, basically what happens, the overall rotation balance becomes huge. And try to
page is, what kind of investment can a resident make on J1H1?
J1H1 pretty much can open the same account. So let me just, I think for some reason the record is playing.
I know, I'm just fixed it. Apologize for that.
No problem. So basically J1H1 can open the same type of accounts like any US citizens can do. They're allowed to open the same brokerage account, same retirement account, as long as they have a social security number. So you can pretty much do any investment you can. But the only to keep in mind that if you're J1 or if you're H1 or F1, and if you want to go back, you have too much of a short-term horizon to stay in the United States, you may not want to be too aggressive in investment because the money you need it, you want to sell everything and go back to Pakistan. So nowadays we do see people go back to Pakistan and do your own stuff. If that's the situation, don't be too aggressive in investment. That's all I can recommend.
Okay. And then there's the question again about 403B versus Roth IRA. So Dr. Zain Khan is on our call right now, and he says, his question is, being an IMG, can you explain to me, as if I'm 5 years old, what the Roth IRA is?
It's a good, very good question. So basically, there's a two types of IRA account. One is called a pre-tax. That means if you contribute less than $10,000 into a pre-tax account, if you're in a 30% tax bracket, you save $3,000 in taxes. It's called pre-tax. The other one is called post-tax. Post-tax means you contribute $10,000 into an account, there is no deduction. So this is first thing you have to understand, what is pre-tax versus what is post-tax.
Okay.
Pre-tax, what happened once you contribute after the age of 60, that's the age for all the retirement account you take money out. Before that, if you take money out, there is a penalty. So in a pre-tax account, after the age of 60, when you take the money out, you do pay taxes. Again, you get a tax deduction upfront in pre-tax, and when you take out during retirement, you pay no penalty in it, but you have to pay taxes. Roth IRA is a post-tax money. There's no deduction you got, so the money will grow tax deferred. But during retirement, about the age of 60, when you take the money out, there's no taxes. So the question becomes, which one is better? If you're in a high tax bracket, go for pre-tax. If you're in a low tax bracket, go for post-tax. Because what happened, the post-tax account, if your income goes high, you don't qualify. Usually the income is about close to 140,000. You don't qualify for the post-tax, which is called a Roth account. So the residents right now in a low income tax bracket, they should definitely consider a post-tax account or Roth IRA. That's what basically means between a pre-tax and post-tax. So pre-tax means 401k, 403b. Post-tax means basically a Roth IRA. And we recommend Roth IRA for sure, because what happened, Roth IRA give you some more leeway to take money out before the age of 60. So after 5 years, therefore qualified expenses, you take money out, like even higher education, buying first-time house, it will give you a lot of leeway. So definitely consider Roth IRA.
Okay. And I don't know if you can address this or not, but is there any secondary income allowed on H1 or J1 visas for international medical graduates?
Secondary income is allowed. The only problem is that there's a restriction how much you can work. So that's the only thing you have to just speak with the university.
Yeah.
That can we get, that's the maximum amount of hours you can actually work outside.
80.
Usually it's, you just have to be a little careful on that. But it's allowed, but is the hours are restricted.
Right. Right. So that's, I think 80 hours work week is our limit.
Yep.
and
Yep.
They can't go over that. Typically residents don't have time to do any moonlighting or locums, but when you become a fellow, you start looking into it. So
Exactly.
yeah. So I don't know if you did hear my other question or answered it about what kind of investments we can make as a J1, H1. So I think what the question is probably more related to not the retirement fund, but beyond that.
Yeah, beyond that, you can pretty much buy same type of investment. We do see a lot of times they want to buy real estate. You can buy real estate if you want. Non-retirement account, you can open individual brokerage account and just buy individual stocks if you want to. There's no restriction in it. If that question is, the investment options are the same for citizens, for green card holder, and the J1, H1 visa. We have clients, same category, and we were able to invest wherever they want to. There's no restriction in it.
I see.
So it depends on your situation and how much liquidity you have it. So you should definitely speak to your CPA or financial advisor, which one is advisable for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let me make sure there's no other questions on Facebook. I think that is all we have for questions. Well, Syed, thank you very much for your time. Very valuable advice. And if you guys want to reach out to Syed, he's a partner at Wall Street Alliance Group. There's a website, wallstreetag.com. And of course, Syed's email, and I can tell you he responds to emails and text messages very promptly. So if you guys have any questions, please reach out to him. We have a lot of APNA members who work with Syed and have been very happy and have a great response. And hopefully, Syed, we'll see you next year at the annual meeting. And so we'll, this is recorded. We are going to edit it, and then we'll be posting it on our webpage. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much, Namira, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.